Farming's been for many years a difficult occupation, and we've got to a stage in myself and my wife in life where it's been very difficult to earn a living out of the job.
I think it's really hard to make a living on the sort of scale that we're farming.
We had 70 cows with followers for beef, 500 sheep, and I still couldn't make a living.
Farming as a profession or a business is quite temperamental, and it's useful to have, well, not guaranteed, but additional income in the summer months to say if you have a bad year in the harvest, which is quite possible.
It's not enough to just have animals on the farm. Both me and my wife have had various jobs over the years because the farm didn't support us as in agriculture.
Agriculture is going only one way, and that's size. You have to be very large to succeed. And we're a very small farm, and there's clearly no room for expansion either way.
The future is still bright, as they say, but it is going to be a lot harder to sustain the farm. Some farms that aren't making enough profit as a farm, as a business, and also especially for younger farmers trying to come into the industry.
We were talking to NIA in Cowbridge in Creative Rural Communities, and we were very excited to see that there was a special grant going for farm diversification. It was called Pride in Our Farming Families.
CRC obviously has a focus this current round on farm diversification, so the partnership felt that it was very important to devote quite a substantial sum towards it. So we launched the grant scheme and then held several events, did a call out through the farming unions who are also on the panel, and then farmers approached us with their ideas. And that worked really well because we were able to work with them, handhold through the process, work with national schemes, COIN, Farming Connect to develop the right project for the farmer to diversify and increase their income.
The grant was good because it helped me focus my ideas. Having to do the application programme was quite good. You had to think about what you were doing. It came at the right time for me because I'm retiring, so I had a little pension coming out. So it complemented what I already had. So it did help. And the backup that we had with publicity and helping just sort of set things up was fantastic.
With the nursery and garden centre, we sold plants. The only reason for coming here was to buy a plant. We've been asked for a tea room for years and years and years by the customers, and we could see that a tea room would be a benefit to the nursery.
We thought of the idea of the tea room because lots of garden centres now have a tea room, and this is to support their business through the winter as much as through the summer, and they seem to go together. The tea room helps the nursery helps the tea room.
It benefits us directly, benefits a much larger area indirectly.
Having the horses and the carriages, it's made that farm a viable concern.
We wanted to completely reinvigorate the business. It was 35 years old, they needed to put a cafe in, needed to bring it up to a modern day spec for a top family day out, which we think we've achieved.
It was an ideal opportunity with these grant schemes so we could build a facility that she could go and earn a couple of quid out of, so she could stay on farm and then we could still carry on producing beef and lamb as we've always done.
It's enabled me to have a lot more business here and expand my name a bit further than what I could on my own.
Unfortunately, farmers have to rely a lot on subsidies as opposed to being paid for the meat. And when those subsidies mean that your business can't match financial ends, then you have to look outside the box and look to diversification.
I can leave my son to take on the farm, so he's got a chance to do what he wants with his life and with the farm, because the farm doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the family, and it's an ongoing thing. I was given the chance, so I got to give my son a chance. And we've got something to occupy us, and he can carry on farming.
When you have a farm, you've got to look for adding value to your product.
We needed to move the stables really. Where they were wasn't very nice. They were sort of back of the buildings and it was always quite damp and miserable in there.
It's made our lives a lot easier because now everything is all under one roof and we're not actually having to go from building to building, and it's made our work a lot easier. So in that ways it's been a great help, and we probably wouldn't have continued with what we've been doing without that kind of thing, just because the workload would be too much for the members. You know, it's only the three of us, so it would have been too much for us.
It enabled us to have this great setup, and without it, it would have been a setup, but not on this calibre.
I got into washing horse rugs because I felt that there was a niche in the market in this area. It's a big area for horse riding, everybody has a horse, and I just thought it would be good to have a local rug wash. A lot of the local farmers have got livery yards or have something to do with horses on their property, and hopefully I'm just a service for these people to use.
What was important for us in the Vale is we wanted something unique. We wanted something that we would be able to could give us an unique selling point. We've heard of the traditional B&B or the hotel accommodation. This offers a range and choice for people with different amounts to spend and who want the different experience. As a result, in the Vale, we're now able to offer something different.
Well, I think bringing tourists down to this end of the Vale of Glamorgan, Ogmore Beach, Southern Down Beach and the Heritage Coast, it's absolutely it brings something to this area that, you know, it might not have had.
The innovation has been much more than systemic. It's actually been a little bit radical, where they've actually thought very in a very forward-thinking way of how they can contribute to the wider Vale, not just to their own enterprise. We've ended up with, obviously, with people setting up bunkhouses and that sort of thing, but a strawberry and sort of soft fruit farm ending up with a maze, which is a tourist attraction, and you know, other things like that.
We want to be a focal point within the Vale. We want to be that first choice destination. We want to be the best tourist attraction in the Vale, but also a sympathetic one. We're not into putting plastics and other horrible, unsightly stuff into the Vale. We want to be good with our neighbours, but we want to make sure that we've got a really good destination for people to come to.
Taking farmers away from their traditional crops and products and trying to move them into other types of activities can give a broader benefit to the local economy. If those activities are creating tourism assets or strengthening existing tourism assets, then the local community benefits by way of additional employment, and it adds to that critical mass of tourism assets within the Vale as a whole.
Hopefully it'll enable us to have competitions here and hopefully have bigger instructors come to the area to teach and hold sort of clinics to enable us to have a sort of variety happening here.
As for the wider Vale, I think it's providing accommodation for people that want to maybe get away and have some sort of quiet area, but they're not too far away from the city. They're only about 20 minutes from Cardiff and maybe half an hour from Swansea. So, and the M4 link is very close, but yet it's still a quiet and peaceful. The feedback that we've had has been very good, saying that how peaceful it's been, but it's easy access to the coast and also to the cities.
Creativity was central to everything that Creative Rural Communities is doing, but in particular it's important in the Pride in the Farming Families project. It is about encouraging farmers and farm communities to come up with new ideas, new ways of supporting the farm business, but also creating broader benefits for the rural communities as a whole. Creative Rural Communities is there to support and help the communities and the farmers bring those ideas into fruition.
With the Creative Rural Communities team and us as officers, potential projects have had a lot of help and a lot of support to encourage them to develop and you know, take their ideas forward and see them through to fruition.
Creative Rural Communities, when we've had trouble, have been very helpful discussing with various other aspects of the council, because the council is quite a large organisation. It's a bit unwieldy sometimes, and they've definitely been really active in engaging with the right people and encouraging the right people to move an application on quicker, because it does take a very, very long time. Sometimes if the things get stuck.
People may have had ideas which they may have thought, well, this isn't going to go anywhere, but with a bit of encouragement and advice, those projects became reality.
To be quite honest, we couldn't have done it without Creative Rural Communities because of the initial input and the cost of the carriage. I mean, it was a phenomenal cost, and they helped us, and they were very supportive all the way along the line. You know, we just couldn't have done it without them. We've had tremendous amount of support, really, and it's about the advertising, it's about everything that goes with the application. Receiving the money for the carriage is a very small part of it.
I'd certainly encourage anybody to do it. I think it's a great thing to do, and I'm really enthusiastic. The team have been massively enthusiastic, and it's great that the CRC team have come out as families and have brought their friends and families to see us. So I love their enthusiasm.
They were very helpful whenever we needed them. You know, took us step by step. I mean, having the people come to help you, meet us, have the meetings and take us step by step, that helped a lot. And you know, it's a lot easier seeing someone than having a telephone conversation or something like that. So it was helpful having someone all the way with us.
Originally, we didn't realise that we could have a grant to help us, but we were told that we could have a word with rural communities, and they then pointed us in the right direction of how to go about applying for the grant.
Creative Rural Communities actually sits within the planning department, so we were able to have a hotline to one of the officers to ask questions that perhaps the general public wouldn't be able to have access to. So we were able to have a very quick turnaround in terms of what was appropriate, what wasn't appropriate, and we could feed that back to the applicants so that they could build that into their project, so that when they were going forward for planning permission, it was a very thought through process, which I think helped strengthen their planning applications, but also move the project quicker in terms of timescales for us.
In reality, we wouldn't have this trailer here today if the grant hadn't been available.
With Fabulous Ice Cream, Cywaen was able to offer skills training, mentoring for the staff, so that they could work and get the customers, make sure the customers were happy, and upsell to the customers, make sure the customers were buying more. And then Creative Rural Communities came in and gave them the tools to do it, the bicycles, the trailers, so they could actually go out to events like this and sell to the public.
I think the only difficulty was it was always dependent on planning, and because the planning process is serpentine at best, even though there were no hostility about it, nobody objected, it was absolutely fine, the problem was you didn't dare get on with it in any way until the plans were through. Now the grant was very, very much time bound, and yet you were up against the planning process, which is incredibly elastic. So we were getting very tight towards the end of 2012, when I think the whole thing, you know, the cut-off would have happened. CRC were very, very helpful all along, but the planning process in the Vale of Glamorgan is always incredibly complex. The whole process was quite easy. I think if you weren't reasonably computer literate, you would struggle with it. So if it was and it was over the top for a very small project. So perhaps a sort of fast-track system for little grants might have been good, but that didn't affect me, because as it was a very generous grant, there was no way that I didn't expect to have to go through a few hoops for it.
You have to then think about the marketing, you have to think about who is your audience, doing a bit of market research to make sure that you're not already overlapping something else that was happening in the area, and how much money you needed, and getting the quotes in for the machinery. Yes, that did help. The application process I thought was quite, not difficult, but long drawn out. We had a lot of detail to put in, a lot of research and a lot of forecasts sort of projecting what you were going to do, which I'm going to admit now my daughter helped me with that little bit. I did all the writing and the sort of talking about what I was going to do and how I was going to do it and what was going to happen in the future, how I was going to expand. But I think it was quite difficult actually. If you're asking for a lot of money, you have to prove that you're going to use it wisely. I wasn't asking for a lot of money and I still went through all the process, but I can see that if people are asking for a lot of money, you can't just have it without showing what you're going to do with it and producing some evidence of the need for what you're doing.
Well, paperwork is paperwork. You sit down, you go through it. But what they wanted was business plans and forecasts. That was a bit onerous, not ever having sat down and done a proper business plan previously. They loved it and they said it was one of the best business plans they'd ever seen.
The form itself was a little bit unwieldy, I think, just because of the size of the application for the size of the project. It would be maybe fine if the project was a couple of 100,000 or something, but it really wasn't. It was about just over 13,000, so I think it possibly could have been simpler.
As with every government-funded process, it is a little bit laborious, the application process. You have to tick all the boxes because I understand that everybody has to be accountable these days. It does tend to be, I'm not a brilliant person for forms and things like that, it's not my natural way, but there was quite a lot to do. Although the process was extended, a little bit laborious, it really was quite useful in the fact that doing the business plans and those side of things were helpful to see whether we were going to make money, and doing the research onto whether there was a market out there. That was very useful to us. That gave us the confidence to go forward. So in amongst all the form filling, it was actually quite a useful process because it allowed us to see that the project would become viable.
The big thing that we've done is the benefits of enabling development in this way, where the application processes were more, rather than just an application for funding or support, the whole process was an enabling one, where our officers worked with applicants to help them to take a look at their business, draw together their business plan and put together a compelling bid.
It was quite complicated. And there was times when we despaired a little bit, but we handed it to them and they sorted out all the problems. And in fairness to them, they did come back to us once or twice and say, look, is this what you want to do? And is there anything we can do to tweak it a little bit for you?
Anything I'd like to change, it'd be speeding the process up a bit more and getting the money to us a little bit sooner. That would certainly make life a lot easier.
The application form, I think, was very straightforward. I didn't have any problems with that. It was possibly a little bit awkward to get 3 different quotes. For a project like this, it was difficult because there are so many elements of work involved.
So it does take a bit of time because they have to justify giving the grant to you and that you're going to prove a good investment to bring jobs into the local economy. I had no sort of questions or anything coming back at me, perhaps because it was comprehensive. It was easy to follow what you need to do, but it does take time to do it, and obviously the result has been fantastic in terms of this trailer.
This is actually a copy of our application form. To get all that information together in the right format and get it all sort of printed up and everything was quite a big task as far as we were concerned.
It's made our lives a lot easier because now everything is all under one roof and we're not actually having to go from building to building.
From the planning angle, there has been a hiccup. I felt that the process was slow and cumbersome, but perhaps they were short-handed or inundated with applications. But this was extremely extended. This application was unnecessarily extended.
If I did do another or applied for another grant, it certainly hasn't put me off. I think I would look into it, take a bit more time, perhaps ask for a little bit more money because I tried to do it quite quickly and wanted to get it done. I had in my mind, I wanted a sort of date where I was going to start. Perhaps I needed to be a bit more patient.
So yeah, we would jump at the opportunity to have another grant to take us a step further. Yeah. Should we say a step further quicker?
I don't know whether I would apply for a small grant because of the effort, so I would equate a small grant to under 10,000.
If another funding opportunity arose, I would say I'd still be keen to look at it. The important thing I believe about this particular funding process was it was a fair percentage of the project. And I think if there's any future opportunity comes up or any decisions made in the future, the key part to us was it was a high enough percentage that made the effort worthwhile. So you could put up with the paperwork, doing everything in triplicate and getting the tenders and all that, because at the end of it there was a sensible amount of money to make a project viable. This project wouldn't have been viable without the funding.